Thank you. Can everyone hear me in the back? Is the mic on? No? Okay. Camera guy, mic guy, tech guy, do we got some? Is it working on it, in progress? Working it? All right, I'll just talk very, very loudly until it gets on. Can you hear me now at this volume? Okay, great. All right, so as you just heard, when I was 12, I convinced my parents to let me drop out of school and start homeschooling myself. So I had an atypical upbringing where I designed and developed my own curriculum. And in the beginning, that mostly just meant studying whatever I was interested in studying. And one of those things was building a website, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But this is kind of how it got started. This was back in the day when you learned how to make websites by reading books like How to Create Web Pages in 24 Hours. Really, really fancy technology. And I was really fashionable. I wore like a fanny pack because I thought it was very practical. It was like a backpack you didn't have to put on your shoulders. Had a yo-yo holster that I carried around all the time. This was very, very popular in the chess circles that I ran with. This was a leather holster, not one of those plebeian canvas holsters. So for most of my life, I was kind of known as the MuggleNet kid, the MuggleNet guy. And MuggleNet grew to become the #1 Harry Potter website. So the website generated about 50 million page views a month and presented one fantastic learning experience after the next. I learned a little bit of everything. I learned a little bit about how to code, how to write, how to edit, how to lead, how to manage, how to design. And I had to grow up really fast because I was managing a part-paid, part-volunteer team of about 120. MuggleNet grew to eventually we had a New York Times best-selling book. We had one of the biggest forums online, one of the biggest fan fiction sites, one of the biggest RPGs. We had the #1 podcast in the world. And we actually used to go on tour, which sounds kind of crazy, but we would go on tour and we did shows ranging from anywhere between a couple hundred people to up to 10,000 people just listening to us blabber on about Harry Potter. So through this experience, I got to have a lot of firsts at an almost unfairly early age. But one memory just really, really stands out as being especially profound. So when it was, I think I was like 17 at the time, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was sleeping. And my dad comes bursting into my room with a panicked look on his face and a phone in his hand. And he said, "Emerson, it's Joe." So I'm thinking, why is some guy named Joe calling me at 8 o'clock in the morning? So he hands me the phone, and since I just woken up, I sounded like Barry White. "Hello?" "Hello, Emerson, this is Joe Rowling." "Hey, what's up?" So she wanted to know if I would be interested in coming to her house in Scotland and interviewing her on the day of the release of the 6th book. Wow. Interested. I played it cool. I said, "Joe, let me check my schedule. Maybe I can fit you in. Our people will talk." Now, she is like the coolest, most down-to-earth person that you could ever hope that a billionaire, famous, successful person could ever hope to be. We ended up talking for over 2.5 hours, which was more than twice as long as it was supposed to. And so we're basically, BFFs now. Is the mic working now? Can you hear it? No? How about now? How about now? Yes? Yes? Ooh, that sounds like technology right there. Okay, cool. So we're going to go. This is like some really fancy high-tech solution where I hold a tiny. No, it's not working. All right, well, I'm going to keep talking at a very loud volume and then scare the hell out of you when the volume comes on. So anyway, so that was an amazing experience. We're basically BFFs now, except not really, but in my head we are. So through this experience, I learned a lot, but my curriculum, aside from that, was again, I studied whatever I was particularly interested in studying. And so one thing my parents did, though, that was really smart was they had me read 4 short biographies of successful people every day. And this just shattered my little 12-year-old brain into about 10,000 pieces. And I started to think really big. And I had this epiphany. I decided that I was going to change the world. The kind of crazy idea that you can have when you're 12-year-old. And what can't you do? There's this whole big bright world out there. And all these other people change the world. It's not that big of a deal, right? So I got really interested in studying, what is it about people who change the world that was different? And so as I kept diving into, ooh, that sounds like technology. You hear that? Is that technology? Do you hear it? Yes? Get in the back? Okay, it's coming through now? All right, great. I can stop yelling. Nope. It's gone now? All right, back to old school. So through this experience, I ended up really doing a deep dive into the lives of people who had already changed the world to see what patterns I could extract from their experiences. And in doing this research, one conclusion that I came to very quickly is that people who change the world tend to be extraordinarily influential before they change the world. And that the more influence you have, the more impact you can create. And so that kind of set in motion a lifelong fascination with studying influence. And then there was one type of influence that really captured my imagination, which was virality. Because I thought, if you can make things go viral, that's like having a human superpower. I mean, you could tip elections, you could overthrow dictators, you could start movements, you could revolutionize entire industries. So fast forwarding a bit, I decided to go to college for fun. Not a great reason to go to college, and very predictably, I got bored very quickly, and I was going to drop out and start another business. I went to Notre Dame, by the way, and I'm a big Notre Dame fan, so So, but before I start my next business, I wanted to like identify a model that would, I want to go really big really quick. And so I wanted to be able to connect dots and see patterns between different disciplines and industries. So I set a goal of reading one nonfiction book every day until graduation. Business, politics, psychology, economics, technology, science. And it was studying thousands of different companies, thousands of different industries, everything from natural gas wholesaling to drywall contracting. Again, looking for patterns. And it was actually a 3-part process. The first part was reading, reviewing, and then rehearsing. Basically learn it, remember it, and then be able to apply it. So then the next part of it was like, how do I actually remember this stuff 10 years later when I could actually apply it? So I spent the first 6 months doing a deep dive into the neuroscience of learning how to learn. Because learning how to learn is literally the most important thing you can ever learn. Because it builds on everything else. It provides an exponential return on the time that you invest in it. It is like wishing for more wishes. So I ended up building out different spaced repetition schedules where I'd review everything that I wanted to remember on a schedule of a day later, a week later, a month later, and then every 6 months. And then the third part of the process was rehearsal. Again, the idea being, how do you actually practice applying all these intellectual ideas? It's one thing if you're a basketball player, you just do what Kobe Bryant does and go to the gym and shoot 800 jumpers a day, or Mo Norman going to the driving range and hitting 1,000 golf balls a day. But how do you do it with this stuff? So I organized all the information into frameworks to contextualize it. So I'd have a persuasion framework, a negotiation framework, an innovation framework. And the innovation framework is what kind of led to the first of a series of aha moments, which then led to the company as it is today. And so the way that I practiced innovation, which sounds like a ridiculous idea, but I compiled a series of acronyms that encapsulated every different type of business model. And then I would go to Walmart, and I'd go from product to product to product on the shelves and take every product and apply every model to it to practice generating new ideas for products. And so I'd take something like a projector system and I'd say, OK, luxury. Could I just sell a way more expensive projector system to sell status to people with disposable incomes? Or people who just want one to work? Or long tail, could I let people customize their own projector systems, et cetera, et cetera? So using this approach, I came up with thousands of billion-dollar ideas. And I got really interested in, OK, which of these actually has the highest probability of becoming a billion-dollar business? And I started to get really obsessed with this notion of probability of success. And then the obsession with probability of success and the obsession with viral potential led to the big aha moment with virality. And we started building viral stuff. And I'm actually, I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually kind of the luckiest person in the entire world because my co-founder is also my wife, who also is a 12-year-old entrepreneur, who also started a popular website and was running large online communities at the same age. So yeah, I hit the jackpot. Which website? So a number of websites. So a bunch of them, actually. So the first website was a website called Gives Me Hope, where people would share uplifting and inspiring true personal stories. For example, this one. My little sister came home from school one day and demanded I take her to the library so she could get books on sign language. I asked why. She told me there was a new kid at school who was deaf, and she wanted to befriend him. Today, I stood beside her at their wedding, watching her sign, I do. That was a very common reaction. And this story was shared over 500,000 times. OK, I was getting some sign language over here. What was it?
You can use mic now.
Mic now? Technology? Do we hear technology? In the back? Is technology working? Yes, no, yes? Ooh, that sounds like technology. All right, great. So this story was shared 500,000 times, as were many other stories like it. This website went viral, which, by the way, is kind of awesome. Like an entire website about positive stories and content that went viral back in 2009. And then we end up building more sites like it, optimistic, inspiring sites where people would share their love stories, people would share their secrets, and then some funny sites where people would share funny memes or funny iPhone autocorrects, which there's a good chance you stumbled across some of these at some point online. Yes, that was us. Funny stick figure comics, funny motivational posters. But here's what we do today. We focus on creating content that is worth sharing. So when I say that we have so the way our business works is that we use technology to create and distribute viral content across the web. So basically we use algorithms to help us identify what will go viral, then we create awesome content that really moves people, and then people share it. And these are the two sites we have now. So dose.com, which is our flagship site, and OMG Facts, which there's a good chance you've seen if you spent time on the social web. So how do we actually get that much virality? So we get 50 million monthly unique visitors. And that's about the equivalent of the entire population of Central America every month. And right now, we have about a United Center full of people that are currently on dose.com alone. So how do we do that? So first, I'm going to talk about some very high-level ideas about virality. And then I'm going to finish with like 15 very specific tips that you can use to use social media more effectively in your business. Because I know that it's hard to figure out what you should actually do, and there's so much information out there, and it seems like this this kind of maybe important thing, but it's easy to get lost in the shuffle of the day-to-day. And I'll tell you like a few things you can do right away. So first, two high-level ideas with virality. One is this notion of viral coefficient. That just means how viral is something. So when I tell this lovely lady right here a great joke, and then she shares it with her two lovely lady friends, and they share it with two people, and so on, the viral coefficient would be 2. That's crazy awesome viral. But if I tell a way less funny joke, and she only shares it with like a half a person, every other person who shares it then with half a person, then eventually it'll die out. You don't get this upward sloping awesome viral curve. So the key idea here is that if you look at this chart, it shows that the viral coefficient of 1.2, look at that, that's exponential. If the viral coefficient is only 0.8, it's linear. So like basically it'll die quickly versus like go nuts, awesome, on the front page of everything. So little differences, big, big, big impact. The other idea is cycle time. Basically, when I tell this great joke, how long is it until she shares that joke with somebody else? And so on. So a fast cycle time would be like a funny photo. Like on our sites, we've got content that helps people learn, laugh, and feel inspired. And that's stuff like when you see a funny photo, you either share it right away or you don't share it at all. I mean, how many people here actually go back and say, like, I wonder if I've seen any really funny photos in the past month that I should share now, a month later? Is the volume still good in the back, by the way? No? Yes? No? How about now? OK, great. Make sure to just like wave at me if I get too quiet, because I'm holding up the t-shirt mic, but I'm doing it in my hand, which is different than it usually is. All right, so those are two ideas. Now, if I just summarize everything that I've learned into one kind of actually, I'm just not going to use this because I can hear the weird volume changes, and it's probably just awful in the back. OK, so if I just summarize everything that I've learned about virality into one almost like obnoxiously simple idea, it's that the more incentive you give people to share, the more likely they are to share. Now that's interesting, but not super useful, right? Because things that are likely to share, like it could be something as simple as this fact, for example, which we've published like once a month for like 5 years on OMG Facts, and it goes a little bit viral every time, which is that you can't hum while holding your nose closed. We're all going to try this right now for ourselves. Everyone. Everyone. Yes, you. Silence. So this just creates this boost of like, I didn't think it would work for me, but it did work for me. Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to go share it. And people do share it. And it's been shared 713,000 times. And it's really, really simple and really easy. OK, now there's two different types of virality. One virality is what I would call emotion-based virality, where people share because they have a great experience. And they want to tell people about that great experience. The other kind of virality is bribery-based virality, where people share because they are incentivized to do so. This is actually, for most businesses, the easiest way to get people to share is to offer them something of value in exchange for them telling about your friends. Like, hey, share this with your friend, and we'll give you both a discount. We'll give you a discount. We'll give you a coupon. If you buy my pair of shoes, we'll donate one to a child in need. Again, for most businesses, this is the easiest way to create virality. But that usually people's eyes just glaze back, and they're not interested in that. So I'm going to talk about emotional-based virality, which is like way more cool. So basically, people, again, only share things when they feel a lot of stuff. You got to feel a lot. It has to be really awesome content, really awesome idea, really awesome user experience. Anger is a very powerful emotion that inspires people to share. All you have to do is like look at any article on, if you guys ever if you've been onto a website called Reddit, and you look at any article about Comcast, you'll see a lot of upvotes because people hate Comcast. And you can stick it to Comcast by sharing an article about Comcast being the devil. And people do. So another example, so I had this section on Mugglenet called the Wall of Shame, where the idea of this was like, so I used to get 150 emails a day from 149 very nice people, and then one troll. Like one person who was not very nice. And usually the troll emails were not very interesting or remarkable, but sometimes they'd be really funny, because the troll was just so dumb. And they'd be attacking me for something that was really stupid. So I would take the troll email and I'd put it on this page, and then I would like point out the obvious, absurd nature of the troll's argument. And people thought this page was simultaneously really funny, but also really anger-inducing, because they would see me getting attacked by some completely unfair internet troll, and they would want to come to my defense because they were angry at the injustice of it. And they would tell their friends about the section. They would email me saying, I'm so sorry, you have to deal with these idiots, et cetera, et cetera. So this section actually had a lot of virality because it inspired anger. Obviously, anger can be very dangerous, too. No question about that. And then other emotions that work better than others. Cute animals, humor, nostalgia. Yeah. Probably don't need to talk about those too much, right? Another big part of the reason why people share things, though, is because right now, if you share anything online, before you do, every time you do, you're always asking yourself the question, if I share this, will this make me look cool? So this is the reason why nobody shares porn. So an interesting stat. Chartbeat released a study showing that only 25% of people who shared an article scrolled. Think about that for a second. 1 in 4 people who shared that article scrolled at all while they were on that page, which means that nobody read it. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean people actually only share because they want to look cool? Well, that's one conclusion, and that is true for many types of content. Business content, professional content, content by The Atlantic, content by The New Yorker, content by like really respected institutions people will share without reading because it makes them look cool. You have to look smart to your friends, right? And our content, though, does not work like that. 17 most mind-blowing maps you'll ever see. People only share when they read the whole thing and they feel a lot of feels. So, but that's something to keep in mind. Another thing, too, is if there's something everyone's talking about, something in the news, then that also increases sharing behavior. OK, so let's analyze an example. George Takei, for those of you who don't know, is a viral mastermind. He is an actor from Star Trek a long time ago. He's got a big Facebook page with 8 million likes. He published this photo of Marvin Martian on Mars with the caption, "The first image has now been received from Curiosity on Mars." Now, George Takei didn't actually make this photo. He probably found it on Reddit or something and then decided he was going to share it with his followers. But the question becomes, why did this go so viral? This got 311,000 shares. So we're going to analyze it using the stuff from the last slide. So first of all, think about it like this. Imagine you've got this big fundraising thermometer, right? We're trying to like raise money to get to our goal, and we fill up the thermometer, we get to the goal, and we get to like build a playground or something. Except that's not a playground. We're trying to get someone to share. But you have to get a lot of feels to get somebody to actually be willing to share it, right? So we're trying to increase the feels. And the first part of it, nostalgia. Remember I just talked about nostalgia? Do you guys remember? Are you feeling some nostalgia thinking about Marvin Martian right now? Yeah? OK, so maybe we filled up like 25% of our emotional thermometer from nostalgia. Then we got humor. Because, get it? Marvin Martian on Mars. Get it? It's funny. OK, so now we're like halfway there to our goal of getting to this amount of emotion from this. And then if we go one down, we see that, will sharing this make me look cool? Identity. Well, if you share this, yes, you will in fact look smart to your friends because you know what Curiosity on Mars is because you read the news. Now, this isn't like New Yorker level sophistication. But it is newsy in some way, so you do get to look like not an idiot to your friends. And then the fourth one is what's hot. Everybody's talking about Curiosity on Mars. Oh, you don't know about Curiosity on Mars? Puh. You are not a concerned public citizen. So all these things contributed to getting us to our goal, hitting enough emotion where somebody slams that share button, and 311,000 people did. Now let's talk about how ideas spread. This is actually important. And as you're thinking about this, think about how you get referrals in your networks right now. Because I imagine that for most of you, word of mouth is a big percentage of your customer base. So think about it like this. OK, look at that. See that cluster? I'm going to get down and describe it because this is way too much fun. All right, so this cluster right here. Let's say that in this Marvin Martian example. No, let's use a real. Yeah, we'll use that example. So this guy right here is my college roommate, Bill. He's the kind of guy who would make that Marvin Martian image. He'd make it in like 5 minutes in MS Paint, post it to his Facebook wall, hope to get like 2 chuckles from other guys in the dorm, and then move on. But he sees it, I liked it, I shared it, it went out to my network. I'm a little bit more social than he is, so I've got more friends in the dorm. They all thought it was funny, and then it bounces to this guy who likes it, this guy likes it and shares it, and then this guy likes it and shares it. And this guy's really important because this guy is the connection to all these other networks of people. And maybe this is like the University of Michigan, and this is like StarCraft nerds, and this is soccer moms in Tacoma, and this is Norway. But what if this guy was on vacation in Turks and Caicos? and didn't see it and didn't share it, it would never spread to these clusters. So the key idea here is that like even great ideas get trapped in clusters all the time. And George Takei, and he promotes it to this cluster, and all these people never saw it before. That's how he created value, and he started this entire new viral wave from that sharing. So another example is like, okay, so let's say that this right here is the first big influencer who shares it, and it goes out to like 1 million people, and they all see it, and then of those people, like 5% of people thought it was great and decided to share it with their networks, and then it spreads to this group, and then 5% of these people's followers decided to share it, and so on and so forth. But maybe like this is George Takei, because George Takei's got a huge audience of people who saw it and shared it. But like this guy's pretty influential too, because a lot of people saw it and shared it once he shared it and saw it, et cetera. And then it just keeps spreading. And this is an example of like a very viral post, because usually they don't get past like 2 or 3 generations of shares. OK, so now I'm going to go into the part where I talk about specific applications. And please interrupt me at any point to ask questions or like help me figure out how to like apply this as much as possible to your business. So first of all, we found, and our team, by the way, our entire company is mostly like data scientists and engineers, so we test a lot of stuff. And this is some of the things we found that are valuable. First of all, we found that you can tweet the same thing 3 times, 8 hours apart, and you will get almost as many new people to see it the 3rd time as the 1st time. So you basically get like 3 times as much bang for your buck with the tweet. And the reason why is because people only read whatever was in their Twitter feed that was published in the last like half hour to an hour, usually. So if you tweet 3 times, then you have 3 times as many chances for someone to actually see your tweet. And people who are on Twitter 8 hours separate are people who have very different Twitter browsing behaviors. They might be in different time zones, morning people, night people, et cetera. So bam, right there, 3 times bang for the buck from each tweet. For content online, yes?
So the same works for Facebook posts?
Facebook, you don't want to post the same thing 3 times 8 hours apart. This is Twitter only. Facebook has an algorithm that determines which content to show which people. And so Facebook's algorithm will see you making a duplicate post and say, no, only one. Title testing. This is really, really important. If you're producing any content, let's say it's a blog post, anytime you want to get somebody to click on something, it could be a listing, it could be anything. But again, if your goal is to get people to click it, make sure the title is good. Make sure it's something that they'll actually want to click. If your title sucks, they won't click it. If they don't click it, you didn't achieve your goal. Now, how do you actually test titles? Well, if it's a listing, maybe it's like asking, maybe it's just thinking critically about like, okay, is this title going to provide people the information they need to know if they want to click it? That's really important. Again, you completely fail if somebody who would be interested doesn't click it because they don't get what it is. So be as clear as possible. Also, if you're let's say you have a blog post or something, test multiple titles. Do this. Write 20 titles, narrow it down to 5 that are the least sucky, and then ask a handful of people which one they like the most, and go with that one. That alone will probably double the amount of people who see your blog post. Because remember, the title is like the entire sales pitch to read the blog post or to read whatever it is. So most people spend hours creating a blog post and then minutes on the title, but that's like giving a great speech to an empty room. Nobody clicks it. It didn't achieve the desired result. So another thing too, okay, so here's when I was thinking about like, okay, what if I was an agent, what's something that would be really easy for me to do that would help? And I was thinking like, well, one thing you can do is on Facebook and Twitter and every network really, don't think of it like you have to have this like Chinese wall of separation between work and play. Facebook is not, I'll use Facebook as an example because Facebook is by far the most important platform in general on social. Facebook, you shouldn't think of as like, I'm advertising to customers. Think about it like everybody's your friend. Not your like close friend, bro friend, but like, somebody that you have a relationship with. And on Facebook, when you like somebody's post, let's say it's a former client, and you really got to know them well, and maybe you added them as a friend on Facebook, which I would definitely recommend. Like, don't be too stingy about adding people on Facebook. When somebody likes your post on Facebook, do you ever sit there and think like, they should not have liked this post? I think ill will to them because they liked this post, and it was not an appropriate post for them to like. Probably not very often, right? Usually you just feel good because a like is just a digital compliment. It's just like a smile. And every time that you like somebody's post, they are reminded that you exist and that you care about them. And you care enough about them to be reading their updates. And so you're basically telling them, hey, I'm still paying attention to you. I still care about you. And because they remember that you exist, they're much more likely to remember that you exist when their friend is in the market for a new place. And you're like, oh, by the way, I worked with this great agent. And you're much more present in their minds, much more likely to remember that you exist because of this interaction you have on Facebook. So my own rule of thumb is that whenever I really get to know somebody, like I went out for lunch with them or dinner with them, then I'll add them on Facebook and I create a separate list. And I'll go through that list and I'll filter it so I only see status updates, because people put their most important updates as status updates. And I don't really want to see check-ins and things like that. And then I'll go through and I'll read the post, and it doesn't take very long. Like, it probably only takes me 15 minutes every couple days. And I will be generous with liking posts. And as a result, not only does it create this sort of way that I can stay in touch with a lot of people very easily, but I'm getting all these touch points too, so that if they can introduce me to somebody who I can be helpful to them, they're much more likely to remember that I exist because we have this even minuscule relationship with Facebook. You can do the same thing on Twitter with favorites. You can do the same thing on Instagram with likes. It's a really simple, lightweight way to stay in touch with a lot of people without spending a lot of time doing it. Now, this is not a substitute for real person-to-person interaction. It's a supplement to it. So that's one way to stay in touch with a lot of people very easily. Lists are a good way to do this. You can create separate lists on Facebook and Twitter where you can only, so for example, let's say that you're like, well, how do I blend? Like, I don't want to post listings to my own personal page, my own personal Facebook page, but I only have 3.5 followers on my company page, so posting listings there doesn't do anything. You can create a list where it's only people that you added. Let's say it's people that are in the business, in the industry, or people that would be relevant, and you can post it so that only those people see those kinds of posts. That's a good way to kind of create that separation. So if you have 500 friends on Facebook or 1,000 friends on Facebook, you can still make sure that only relevant posts. So for example, I've got a Notre Dame list, all my Notre Dame network. I post if I want to spam stuff about Notre Dame football and how angry I am at that blocked pass or whatever. That makes sense. Blocked kick. Then I'll post it and only those people will see it. I've got a Chicago network. I've got a business network of people that I stay in touch with for business reasons. But yeah, this is an easy way to stay in touch. Also, when you're writing for the web, remember to be brief. Imagine that, first of all, don't use commas. Commas lead to long sentences, and long sentences are harder to read. Imagine that somebody's paying you $1,000 for every word that you remove. Brevity is king. And then paragraphs. Like, what happens when you look at a giant block of text? What does your brain think? No way. Fuck that. By the way, the reason why I said that is because what happens when I say fuck? You pay attention. It creates more emotion. It's the same thing I was talking about, the emotional thermometer. You're much more likely to remember it. So when you've got this big nasty paragraph of text you're about to hit publish, and you're like, wait, no. I have this feeling like I'm not supposed to do this. Why? And then in your head you'll think, because fuck that. So don't have more than 2 or 3 sentences in a row without adding line breaks. Okay, referrals. This is something that in our business, we ask them to share all the time, because if you don't ask people to share, they're much less likely to share. So if you're looking for referrals, ask people to share right away. Also, right away is the most important time to ask, because that's when they're feeling the most feels and they're most likely to be motivated to give you a referral. It is mind-blowing to me how many people that are in service-based businesses still are total pussies about asking for referrals. Do you really think people are going to think that much less of you because you say something in a dignified way of like, hey, by the way, my business depends on referrals. So if you know anybody that I could be helpful to, I would love for you to put them in touch with me. And specific referrals too. Like if you I specialize in this type of home and this type of market, et cetera, let them know. And that way they can filter through their network better. And then they're also much more likely to remember that you exist when 9 months later their friend is like, hey, I'm thinking about buying a home. And they remember that you exist, and they're like, oh, you should definitely talk to the agent that I use. So that specificity is really, really, really important. Also, in your email signature, this is a really easy place. I don't know why everyone doesn't do this, but like a message that says something similar to that. Like if you know anybody that I could be helpful to who's looking for a home, I'd love to be helpful. Something like that. This is, again, a really, really easy way. You send a lot of emails out. That's a lot of you're planting the idea in people's minds that they should be thinking about referrals for you. Because true, lots of people will think of referrals, but lots of people won't. And even just a tiny little nudge goes a long way. We see this all the time in our business. Even the tiniest little things saying like, did you like this? Share it. Bam, share rates go up dramatically. On Twitter specifically, if you draw a little bit more attention to the tweets, I'm going to 8 now. If you add an arrow before a link, just like dash, dash, close, like that arrow thing, then more people will click the link, more people will see it. If you want people to retweet it and you ask them to retweet it, spell the whole word retweet. That leads to more retweets. And then if you want people to retweet something that you tweet, make sure you tweet it after working hours so that they don't get in trouble with their boss. Because everyone's worried a little bit that their boss is going to see them on social media. And so unless you're doing business content or something, make sure to tweet it after working hours so they can safely retweet it. And then there's lots of tools. I would encourage you to all think of yourselves like, and I know that you're on different roles, et cetera, but like just think of yourself as like a startup of one. You're like a startup with exactly one employee, and then you've got this resource in the form of the bigger company, but there's so many tools that are available to help you solve problems that you either didn't know you had or that you knew that you had, but you didn't realize there were tools available. And growthtools.io and startupstash.com are really good resources for finding out what tools are available. There's probably at least one tool out there that will save you hundreds of hours of time or thousands of hours of time that you just don't know that it exists. And all you have to do is spend 1 hour looking through these tools. You'll find one, you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe there's a thing that helps me do this thing that I spend so much time doing. And your life will be changed. Super, super high ROI use of time. Also, again, for networks, I would prioritize Facebook above other networks because Facebook is by far the biggest of all the major social networks. Facebook like eats everyone else combined. It's so big. You have to be on Facebook.
Millennials and younger generations as well.
Question is, what about millennials and younger generations? Everybody's on Facebook, including millennials and younger generations. It is in vogue in my industry in tech to not talk about Facebook and talk about the new networks like Snapchat and Twitter or Snapchat and Instagram. And it's true that young people use Snapchat and Instagram, but they still use Facebook. And Instagram and Snapchat are definitely younger concentration of users. Snapchat is really hard to get business value from. I wouldn't encourage you to do too much with that yet unless you really know your way around the social web. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest are all good. They're good for different reasons. But the thing is like this. I would think about it like this. If you produce content for one platform, produce it in a way that it'll work for other ones too. So for example, if it's a photo, let's say that it's like you had a client who just closed and you want to show this photo of them with the keys and they're smiling and they're happy. You can post that same photo to Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook, and Twitter. So that way you don't have to do 4 times as much work to get to be on 4 different platforms. You can just post the same thing to every platform. There's tools like Buffer which help you do that. Or it's not that much just copy paste, bam, 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 done. Doesn't take long. But that's the way that I would think about all this. So Pinterest is good for women. It's like 90% women or so on the site. Instagram is very heavy picture-based, as is Pinterest. Twitter is text-based right now, but you can easily make it picture-based because Twitter lets you post photos. But most people still don't do that, which is mind-blowing to me because photos are way more interesting than text. But again, remember, Facebook should probably be, on average, I'd say 60 to 70% of your social media efforts should be focused on Facebook. Or if you're talking about the strategy I was talking about before, about be generous about liking other people's comments, stay in touch with them. It doesn't mean you have to get involved in all the day-to-day gossip. Just read it quickly, like it if it seems like something that's not inappropriate to like, and then move on. It doesn't mean that you have to sit there and it's not like watching soaps all day. It doesn't have to be like that at all. Hashtags. Marketers just get this very, very wrong, and we see it in the data. Hashtags are annoying. And what happens when you see a tweet, and the tweet is half blue with hashtags and then half black? It's annoying. It's hard to read. People don't like them. Hashtags are based on this misguided idea that there's lots of people that are searching for the hashtag of the word overdue, or searching for the hashtag of the word hashtags, or don't. People don't really use Twitter like that. People don't really spend that much time searching for just a certain hashtag. So you're not going to get much value from it. Don't overdo hashtags. You should not have more than 1 or 2 hashtags in your tweets on average. If you're not trying to get followers on social, one easy way to do that is just to follow a lot of people, and then a lot of people will follow you back out of a desire to reciprocate. Obviously, following people in your industry is getting more relevant than following people in other industries, et cetera. But this is a good way to kind of get off the ground in social, because I know a lot of people are I got on Twitter, but I have 3 followers. I don't even know how to get started. This is one way to do it. Word of mouth marketing. It also, word of mouth marketing and virality are basically the same thing. Virality just sounds way cooler. But word of mouth marketing is one of those things where I'm just amazed that more people don't know about. What percent? Is because word of mouth is such a big percentage of your business. You should definitely spend at least 4 hours or so reading one book on word of mouth marketing specifically, because you'll get at least one tip that could dramatically increase the amount of business you're able to generate. There's so much good information out there. My 2 favorite books are these 2, which I'll get to in a second. I hope you got that. I'm not going back to that slide. Did you write quick? No, I'll do it right now. So these are the 2 books. I don't want to be a tease. This book, I believe, is the best intro book on word of mouth marketing. It's just called Word of Mouth Marketing by Andy Cernovich. You can probably skip the first third of it because it just tells you why word of mouth is important. If you already believe it's important, just skip that and read the second thirds. Bam, I just saved you an hour and a half time. And then the other book is The Lean Startup, which is a book that I wish I had more than any other book when I was first starting out in business. Again, it's how to get more done with fewer resources. This book has completely revolutionized the startup world. If you think of yourself like a startup of one, then you'll be able to figure out how to apply these same ideas that have been revolutionary for the startup world into your own business.
Who's that author?
The author is Eric Ries for The Lean Startup. All right, so when you're thinking what kind of content should I publish, think 80% work. 80% play, 20% work. By that I mean 80% content that won't bore the shit out of the people who follow you, which is important, right? If you only post listings, then your content's really lame. And unless somebody's really, really into your listings, they're not going to be interested in following you, and they're not going to follow you the first time, or they're going to unfollow you, or they're going to learn to ignore your posts. So you got to post content that's actually going to resonate, that isn't boring, that's fun, that's interesting, that's relevant, lifestyle content, connecting content. And then you can still post listings and things like that, but like make sure the ratio is roughly 2/3, 1/3, or 80/20. And then if you're looking for content, like what content should I publish? Just look at what successful other accounts have done, what kind of content they publish, and then use that as inspiration for what kind of content you should publish. And finally, depending on your audience, right here I have a kid look at your profile. Now it doesn't have to be a kid, obviously, if you're not selling to kids. But like ask somebody who's in your target. So if you're trying to sell to people like me, 20-somethings, then just ask somebody like, hey, can you take a quick look at my profile and make sure that I'm not like this? Thank you. Okay. How much time do I have for questions? 5 minutes? Okay, cool. 5 minutes for questions. Yes.
Can you talk for a minute about paying for sponsored posts or sponsored tweets to increase, the likelihood of people seeing it?
The question is what do I think about sponsored posts and sponsored tweets to get more people to see it? I think sponsored tweets generally are not very good. Twitter doesn't really have their act together yet on that. Facebook is great. My recommendation with sponsored posts is only promote the stuff that is really, really important. So the best content marketers online, one thing that they all know that most people don't know is that you don't want to give everything that you publish equal exposure. You want to double down on your winners. So if you post a bunch of content and you see one post that does really, really well, that's the one that you should use more as a promoted post, that you actually spend some advertising budget behind. Because that's the one that's going to perform the best when you actually put some budget behind it. How often should you post to your Facebook business page? So it depends on how good your content is, but as a rule of thumb, I would say once per day is probably a reasonable average. At the very least, every other day.
Are you saying we really shouldn't even have a business page? We should just meld it all into our personal?
Question is should you have a separate business page, or should you blend it all into your personal? I think you should probably have both, and you should probably just post the same things to both that are appropriate for each one. So for example, if you post something to your personal page that's relevant for your business page, publish it on both. You don't have to do extra work that way, but you'll at least have the value of the business page. But again, if you have a lot of friends on Facebook, as you add people as a friend, and then you're engaging with them by liking their stuff, then that's going to be, I would imagine, more effective for most people than trying to build a business page. Because really, what motivation does somebody have for following your business page? There's not that much motivation. Some people do it anyway, but many more people will be interested in connecting you personally because you had a good working relationship together or something like that. And so it's a better way to just stay in touch and keep people in the know in your network. And so that's what I recommend.
Is it cost effective to boost? Is that a good thing to do? To pay to boost your page to others? Is that I've done it and I don't know how valuable it really is.
The question is it valuable to boost your page? To give Facebook money to get your page more exposure? It's impossible to say without looking at your specific numbers, but I would say in general, I wouldn't boost the page as much as I would only boost your posts that do really well. If you have a post that kills it and it's the best post you've ever published, that's the one that I would boost because that's the one that you're going to be able to cheaply get a lot of exposure for. Because the way that Facebook works is that Facebook's in the business of only showing good content to people. If your content sucks, Facebook says all right, well, if you're going to make me put this piece of crap on people's feeds, you're going to have to pay a lot of money to do it. But if you boost your one really good post that did really well, Facebook's okay, I won't charge you that much money to do it, and you'll get a lot more exposure with it.
When you're paying to boost those posts, where are they? How is it determining whose page is actually putting that feed?
She said, when you pay to boost a post, how does Facebook know where to show that post? Whose feeds to put it in? So there's two ways. One, you can target the post. You can select in Facebook will actually say I want this to only be seen by people in Chicago who list this as an interest and are this age group and this gender. So that's one way. The other way is that Facebook's algorithm will determine who to show it to based on what Facebook knows about people that that post is likely to resonate with.
What do you think about cleaning up your Facebook a little bit? for, let's say I had mine since 2009, and it probably wasn't the most professional things I was posting on there. Am I better off just starting a new one or literally going through and deleting?
Question is like, what are my thoughts on like professionalizing your Facebook presence? Like, I did a lot of stuff back in the day that maybe that doesn't look the most professional now. I mean, the way the world's going is towards like greater and greater transparency. Like, you don't need to put forth like one image here and then another image there. So I would encourage you, unless something is wildly inappropriate, like, it's actually better for people to see the side of you that like, if these are photos when you were in college and there's a photo and you look really hammered, that's okay. Because it shows that you're human and you're normal and you're one of us. You're not like this automaton professional who doesn't like have fun. That being said, my wife did go through and untag quite a few photos I was in from college. All right, one last question. Yeah.
Is there a way to find out who has decided to unfollow you but can still stay friends, so that you can actually have a better handle on what your audience looks like?
The question is like, is there a way to find out who's unfollowed you, who are you still friends with, things like that. There's lots of tools that help you do that. That's where like growthtools.io and Startupstash, you'll find really good tools at helping you better understand who is actually following you. Like, who are these people? Where are they from? What do they like? Who are they following? Things like that. Okay, thank you everyone.